Hi, my name's Leonie West and this is my Tecoma template. It is a set of 2 templates that are used together to create a circle of clamshell design. It goes from around 4 inches to 18 inches and you can do blocks any size up to 18 inches with this set of templates. The 2 templates are these 2. They're quite a long template. They will work on your domestic machines. They are marked with template 1, template 2. We will sew with one of the templates, take the template away, and then we'll sew the next template. These templates have arrows that have been marked on them. That's the way I suggest that you sew them. So for this one we will stitch it from the inside to the outside, and this one will be stitched from the outside to the inside. They are marked with a number of lines for different reasons. The main line that we're going to look at is this line that runs here and here. This is the line that we use for the circle of clamshells design. It has a locating pin hole in each template. The template comes with locating pin. I have placed stable tape onto my templates. I find that when using any clamshell template, I like to use stable tape with the template. This is the Tecoma template up to 12 inches. So I can do a 6-inch block, 8-inch block, going up to 12 inches. Again, it's a set of 2 templates. These are the 2 templates. They have the same markings as the larger one, both marked with T1 or T2, and they are designed to work on blocks up to 12 inches. The instructions that come with the template show you how to make 2 basic designs, and we start in the center, we do a circle, we stitch out of the template, we travel across the outer edge of the block in the seam allowance. We now change the template and come back and go to center, and all we're doing is repeating these 2 movements. Ferny Glade is designed with the template with it writing facing right side up so you can read it, and it spins this way. Ferny Glade in reverse, you flip the template over and you stitch it going this way. When you put Ferny Glade and Ferny Glade reverse together, we create this design, which is Gum Blossom. So there are 3 designs instructions that come with the template. The designs on the covers of the templates show the circle of clamshells quilted using my TempLeeQuilt method, where I have 1 layer of fabric and a layer underneath, and I cut away certain segments to reveal the fabric underneath. For quilting, we need to have our machine set up correctly. We need our Westalee design ruler foot on the machine, needle in the center position. I have a free motion glider underneath. This helps my fabric move correctly whilst I'm sewing, and my machine is set to stop needle down. I have marked my fabric with 24 crosshair reference lines. I use the Westalee Design Ultimate 24. You can also use your 6-point crosshair ruler. I've also marked a 15.5-inch square on the outer edge. This square is where I need to sew to. We will travel along this line. It doesn't have to be perfectly on the line when we travel. This is going to end up in our seam allowance when we sew this together, or in the binding. So with all our lines marked, I need to place my locating pin on the fabric. We can place this from underneath, going through the 3 layers, backing, batting, and then the top fabric, or you can do what I've done here. I have a piece of tape. It's available from the hardware stores. You can use a piece of cloth tape. What you need is a piece of tape that has good tack but does not leave a residue on your fabric. We need to line this up with the center point, so I use my template which has a crosshair reference line marked on it. I make sure that my reference lines are in line with the lines on the fabric. Once I've done that, I can then just push my fingers down gently on that, and that will stay there for the whole design. This pattern is sewn in one thread from start to finish. For the circle of clamshells design, we're going to use two templates, Tecoma T1 and Tecoma T2. We're going to start with T1 and we're going to sew the circle portion of the design first, and this circle is created by stitching around the circle at the end of the template. We're going to sew the circle and then we're going to sew up the clamshells, travel across the top, change the template to T2. So the first thing we'll do is sew that circle. We need to bring our threads up where we're going to start sewing. Lower the foot, bring the needle down, move the fabric, the bobbin thread will come up nicely. Grab hold of the tails. We're going to sew these threads in when we finish. And we're going to sew our circle. This pattern can be sewn without putting the circle in here, but it was designed for the circle, and you can choose to do it differently if you wish. The circle doesn't complete a circle, so we're going to stop. I'm just going to turn my fabric and turn my template as well, so I can sew around to where our first stitches were. Because of the size of the template on this block, I will turn the fabric a lot. So when I finish a line, I may turn the fabric and change template each time. So we finished sewing that circle. My tails are still there. I'll just move them out of the way. And now we need to be able to sew. I'll just take the template off and show you our circle there. Put the template back on. I'm going to line up with this reference line here, and I'm going to use this line on the template. You'll notice the template has arrows at the top end, and that's telling me that I want to sew that direction. You can sew either way, I just find it easier going that way. So I'll just travel around that circle just till I get to the starting line, which is just here. Move those threads away, line up the reference line here, and we're going to sew around the little humps. When we stitch this template, normally we'd follow all the way through on a template to where the template ends. I'm stopping before the template ends. I'm actually stopping on the drawn line. I need a little bit of wiggle room in this template, because when you sew a clamshell, it's always drawing the fabric in with the stitches. We have 24 lines that are going to be sewn on here. That can add up to a lot of drawing. So the template has an allowance built into it, so that when you get to the end of it, your last line should stitch perfectly to the first line. So we're just going to go around each of the little humps. Move your hands when you need to. When we get to the top here, we'll actually travel across the top on that line that I showed earlier, the square line that we've drawn around the block. So now we'll just travel across. It doesn't matter what this stitch is because it's going to be in that seam allowance. Our next line is going to start somewhere around here. Easiest way to know where you need to head to is swap out the template. I'm not in the correct position here. I'm going to have to move right over to here. So we'll just do a few more stitches across here. When you're close, stop. Line up this reference line again. Again, I have the arrows at the top which are pointing me in, and we'll sew down. We're just touching that stitch line as we come to it. We don't want to sew over that line that we've stitched in the previous row, we just want to touch it. When we come down into the center, we have a tiny little quarter circle to sew. We're going to stop here and just gently move the fabric and the template so you're rolling around the edge of that corner of the template. If you have a look at it, we're rolling around a corner. So we're just gently going around there. Change the template to template 1 again. We're going to go back up, line up on the reference line up the top, and we're going to sew up. Again, we're stopping on the stitch line. We'll get to the outer edge again, that square line that we drew. Stop on the line and we'll travel across. Doesn't matter if you stop too early or go too far, you can move back. Take the template off. You can see I now have 3 rows of clamshells that are coming out from the center circle. Back to template 2. We have to go further across. 1 more stitch. Reference line. The reference line is in place, and we can sew back to the center. This can be sewn in both directions, going clockwise or anti-clockwise. If we want to go anti-clockwise, we just turn the template upside down and work with the template upside down. It's exactly the same process. Always stopping on the line and just gently round. Back to that little corner and just gently around the corner. You'll get used to going around that little corner shape to get a quarter circle. And that is the beginning of our circles on clamshells. I'll finish sewing this and come back to you just before we get to the end. This is the second last row I'll have to stitch. I'm just showing how you can use the template at different angles. Remember, there's many different ways you can use this template and many different designs you can create with it. Going back to the outer edge, travel around the block again, and the last row we want to just touch the stitches from the first row. So we'll just bring it down to here. So when I put template 2 back in place, I'm going to line up my reference line here. I am also going to check the distance here. I want that stitch to just drop in on there. I'm looking at it, I can see I need to be a bit further over, and this is where you see the draw up factor coming into play. I will just move over just a tiny little bit, and now I'll stitch down here. So when I stitch this one, I want him to just bump that stitch before, which it did perfectly. When I come down into here, This is why we allowed a little bit more room in this template. I also want to touch that line, so I may just need to just move that template a fraction, one more stitch, and then make sure that that is going to give me that 1/4 inch and touch that stitch. When I come around here, I'm just going to watch how it goes, and I don't know if Bill can drill down in on there. My needle is going right in at the stitch coming down into here. It's perfect. We'll come through, and I'm going to show you a trick if you wind up being out a bit when you get around to the next one. So we're going to come back in, stitch to the line. I'm going to look here, and I would really just move that over a fraction, but I'm going to leave it back here a little bit further than normally, and I'm going to stitch up there. And if you watch as I come into here, I'm going to be off. It's not going to hit and meet that stitch. So what I'll do is I'll come in line with the stitch. I can then freehand one stitch across, one stitch back in, and no one will ever know that I brought it in to create the correct pattern. So we'll just bring the line back where it should be, and we'll do the last one in here. We want to just touch that stitch line perfectly, come down, roll around that point again, and we're back at the beginning. The pattern is complete. The Tecoma circle of clamshell block is finished. I just take my pin away, and I'm going to sew in the tails. I'm using a top threading needle. It is a needle that the thread will pull through the top of, and I don't have to try and thread a needle. I just pull down on that, it goes into the needle. I will tie a knot, and that knot is about 1/2 inch from where it comes out of the fabric. So my knot is just here, and then we're just going to thread the needle back where our last thread came out, through the batting, underneath, through the batting again. We're going to pull it through on the other side. Little pull, you will hear the knot that we put in there just pop slightly, and now all I have to do is cut off the thread, and it's finished. So if we do it once again, thread tails, top threading needle, we're going to just pull the thread into the needle, tie a knot about 1/2 inch from where the thread comes out of the fabric, where that stitch was, and then we're going to feed back in under through the batting. Don't go through to the backing, just go through the batting, bring it out. We're now going to pull that little pull, hear the knot pop into the batting, and cut the tails off, and our block's finished.